All right, our guest is the co-host of Marty and McGee on the SEC Network and ESPN Radio and knows more about Star Wars than George Lucas. But more importantly, he's also the former mascot, Travelers Rest High School, and the voice of the Forest Hill Yellow Jackets. He is Ryan McGee. What's up, McGee?
Brother, I'm doing great. Fall is getting here. It's I drove past a high school stadium just last night and looked like they were going through some two-a-days, which I don't think are legal anymore, but they were doing it anyway. But it just means that it's about time to get going.
Yeah, I went and did a little project at a high school right up the road, and they didn't do two-a-days. They're practicing in the morning before school, which blew my mind. I could never fathom doing that.
Well,
They're
my
going
daughter
right before school and then
my
loading
daughter
up on chicken biscuits and going to
I
class.
No, my daughter just graduated high school, and getting up super early is like their thing now. And when I was in high school, man, I was the guy that the parents had to kick the door, literally physically kick the door. Get up. And my daughter, they got student council meetings at like 5:30 in the morning. And, I think Chick-fil-A changed everything. Once Chick-fil-A started serving breakfast like at 6 a.m., it was just all a big excuse for them to go get a biscuit and then go to whatever. But, yeah, I would be puking up biscuits hard as I could go on August 15th,
These chicken biscuits were from the Golden Pantry. Big friends of the show here. Been fueled by them for a while. A little Georgia chain. But wherever you get your biscuits, there's nothing like one after practice if you can get one or before school. McGee, I mentioned you went to Travelers Rest High School, okay? What's the deal with that name? What does it mean? Where does it go back to?
It's the Devil Dogs. They actually just sent this to me not too long ago. It's the legend Chico Bolin, and Travelers Rest, the old high school where I went and the new high school where they go now, Chico Bolin Stadium. Coach Bolin was he fought in like the Battle of the Bulge, like he's a World War II veteran.
Yeah, can I see that again? The mascot there.
Yeah, look at this.
What kind of helmet is he wearing there?
Yeah, I got a story about the design of this thing. So
okay,
he was a Marine. Chico Bolin was, and so he fought in World War II, and it was in World War One, in this just awful battle in Europe, that the Marines were called the Devil Dogs, like whatever's French for devil dog, like Teufel Dogis or whatever. And so Chico Bolin, when he finished with the Marines in World War II, they opened a new high school in Travelers Rest, South Carolina, just north of Greenville in the mountains. Hired Chico as the Coach Bolin as the coach and athletic director. We need a mascot. And Coach was like, well, I was just with the Marines and the Devil Dogs, and he used to give that speech all the time about how the Marines were called the Devil Dogs and the story behind it. And like now they play this incredible audio recording, like from some documentary for the team before every game about how the Devil Dogs name came about. But yeah, so it's they're not named for the snack cake, which I didn't even know about until I moved to the Northeast for a couple of years. They were named for these ridiculous Marines that fought, in World War I.
When I started my local news career was in Macon, Georgia, and Robins Air Force Base is right down the road, and they had a Devil Dogs squadron, and we used to go and do stories there, and it was incredible to meet those guys, and they gave me one of their coins. I wish I had it with me, but yeah, that's a really cool story. I bet he fired everybody up, man.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel awful. I called him Chico. You don't call him Chico. He's Coach Bolin. Coach Bolin passed away several years ago, but when I was in high school, Coach Bolin had retired, but he came to every game. And he also was a track coach. I ran track, and so he'd come to all the track meets. And I didn't know who he was. I didn't grow up in Travelers Rest. I moved there, started my junior year of high school, and I had a pretty good run. I ran middle distance. I pretty good running 800 one day. And all of a sudden I look up and there's this guy standing there and he's giving me all this advice. I'm thinking, who's this old dude giving me all this advice? And people told me later that was Coach Bolin. But yeah, you didn't call him Chico. You called him Coach Bolin. But it was Chico Bolin Stadium. Yeah. And you talking about the Devil Dog design. So this is the design they still use. And this was designed by a guy named Mark Court. And Mark's little brother, Daniel Court, he was our quarterback. So Mark was a couple years ahead of us, and he designed this. He went on to a great career as a graphic designer, but this is still their logo. So
yeah, clearly. I mean, look at that thing.
Yeah, I mean you don't want to mess with him, right?
No way. I mean,
yeah.
Georgia has that old dog mascot, and they kind of replaced it with like some new graphic design stuff. But putting a doughboy helmet on it, like he's fighting in the trenches,
and he's got the spiked dog collar
for sure.
And the look on his face is like, the hell do you want? Like, you're like, why are you even out here right now? And the best part of it is, so our bitter rival, Travis Rest, is Berea High School, and on Marty and McGee. Sometimes I'll start running down Berea. To this day, they're just the Bulldogs. Like no offense to Georgia out there, but they were just the regular old whatever the Bulldogs. We were the Devil Dogs, and Devil Dogs just sounds better. And so
that's way better.
Yeah.
Do you think the Bulldogs? What would you guess? High school mascots in the country. Bulldogs got to be the top 5, right? You probably got a lot of Cougars. You got a lot of Wildcats, Tigers. I mean, Bulldogs got to be up there, but I don't.
It's got to be number 1. Dogs. I mean, I'm thinking about I went to 2 different high schools. I went to high school in Raleigh for 2 years, and I went to high school in Travis Rest for my last 2 years, and we had at least 2 Bulldogs in the conference in Raleigh, and then we had the Bulldogs that we played against in Gracie. I bet every conference in America has some sort of Bulldogs. I would bet.
Yeah,
it's got to be number 1.
What
Wildcats are probably close.
Yeah, I would think so. What made Berea so bad?
Yeah, but Devil Dogs, I've never found another Devil Dogs. So when I say go Devil Dogs, as I do on Marty McGee all the time, I keep waiting on someone to say, "Oh yeah," when I lived in Connecticut or when I traveled the country, I kind of look around and I haven't found another Devil Dogs yet.
What you said they were Berea? Is that what they're called?
Berea.
What made Berea so bad?
Just mangy. I mean, no good rednecks. They just hang out in parking lots, and I'm not even sure what they did for a living. And they literally, it was such a bleed over. You have people who lived in Berea that went to Travis Rest, and maybe a couple people in Travis Rest went to Berea just because of the blurred lines of the whatever. But it was just, they had like the rundown Kmart. I mean, the most famous person from Berea was a woman who used to walk the streets out there with the shopping cart, and her name was Hubba Hubba. And Hubba Hubba all she did was just walk up and down the road, just yelling and cussing at everybody. Like if you drove past her, she just, you SOB, blah, 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 blah. We'd roll down the window, hey, Hubba Hubba, go Devil Dogs. Blah, blah, blah. So if the most famous person from your town is the woman with the grocery cart cussing at traffic, that's all you need to know about Berea.
Yeah, and she's just gotten out of the rundown Kmart, picked up a blue light special.
Yeah, no, that's totally it. And the deal was, so I moved again. I grew up in Raleigh. I went to a great high school, Enloe High School in Raleigh. Go Eagles! But football wasn't a huge deal. It's a basketball school. We had multiple NBA players: Nate McMillan, Danny Young. All these guys went to Enloe. So when I moved out I'd experienced high school football my whole life, but when we moved to Travis Rest, South Carolina, it was Friday Night Lights. Our team wasn't great, but we caravan behind the bus, when we went on road games. And I remember we played Berea like week 2 of my first year, and all these people had grown up together in Travis Rest. They'd all, preschool, kindergarten, all the way through high school. I showed up. I'm the new guy. I parachuted in, junior year of high school. And I remember we played Berea like game 2 or 3, lost the game. And after the game, I remember my still one of my dearest friends in the world, Scott Dirty McCall. Dirty goes, get in the truck. I go, what are we doing? He goes, we're going to Bernardio's. Why are we going to Bernardio's? Bernardio's was a pizza joint right at the border between Berea and Travis Rest. We're going to Bernardio's to fight. Like, it didn't matter who won the game, who lost the game, whatever. When the dog bowl was over, you went to Bernardio's and hung out in the parking lot like it was at a strip mall, and you just kind of circle each other like West Side Story.
Yeah.
And eventually somebody threw hands, and the fight started. And it's just, and I realized, this is how this goes right now. And so I think it's probably still how it goes.
Bernardio's the official pizza of the Dog Bowl post-game brawl.
Yeah, that was it. And Travis Rest last year destroyed Berea, and I proudly on Marty and McGee, wherever we were, like at LSU or somewhere, and I proudly announced, "Hey, I just need everybody to know, Travis Rest beat Berea 56 to whatever last night.
Yeah.
Go Devil Dogs." And
Y'all probably aren't doing good numbers in Berea.
Yeah, probably not, and that's fine. So every year I speak, try to every year at Palmetto Boys State, American Legion Boys State in South Carolina is a experience, one of the greatest experiences of my life, and certainly my high school career. And I'm fortunate that most years they bring me back to speak to the boys at Boys State each year. And there's 2 representatives from almost every high school in the state of South Carolina. And I always start the speech by saying, "Hey, I'm a proud graduate of Boys State, and I'll say, where are my Travis Rest Devil Dogs at?" And there's all the 2 guys, "Hey, yay." I'm like, "Go Devil Dogs." And I'll say, "Where are the guys from Berea? We got any guys from Berea?" And they go, "Yeah." I go, "Oh, you 2 shut the hell up and sit there the rest of the time. I don't want to hear anything out of the rest of y'all, rest of the night." So it's still, I'm old, man, but I'm still Berea's Berea.
You got to set the tone.
Yeah.
We kind of had the opposite with our rivals. Our school got split off. A huge school. For a while, it was the biggest high school in the country, I think, Collins Hill, and they split it off to Peachtree Ridge. And that's where Ironhead Hayward's kid was going to play football for Collins Hill.
Yeah.
And they split it off to Peachtree Ridge. And of course, everybody wants to go to the new school. So he went to Peachtree Ridge, and everyone went with him, essentially. And they were good right away, like right out of the gates. And it was a pretty wealthy area. I mean, not like super upper crust or anything, but we became the poor school. And my brother told me after I graduated that the insult for Peachtree Ridge when Collins Hill would play is the student section would shake Pop-Tarts in the student section because they said that was the only thing that Collins Hill could afford for breakfast. I'm like, first of all, Pop-Tarts are not a bad breakfast.
Not at all. No, I may or may not have had a Pop-Tart about an hour ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, kind of opposite ends of the spectrum. They didn't have a hubba or anything like that, but it gets nasty, man. The high school rivalries, we had fights. I mean, of course we had fights, all that stuff. So, there's nothing like that high school rival. So you ran track.
Yep.
Did you play any other sports? What was the team like? What was the track team like?
Now, I was a runner, so and I had a lot of. So our coach, our track coach at Travis Rest was the football coach, Jack Anderson, and Jack Anderson had played high school football for Chico Bolin back in the '60s, and then he played for Frank Howard at Clemson. He played a couple different positions at Clemson. Was all ACC, led the ACC in punting like 2 years in a row. And Jack Anderson, I mean, to this day, he's the guy. Like no one's been a better athlete than Jack Anderson in the history of Travis Rest High School. No one will be. They had their inaugural Hall of Fame class at Travis Rest about 10 years ago, and Jack Anderson was the guy. And Coach Anderson, his hair has always been white. Like I swear, I think he was born, in the 50s with like a head of white hair. But Coach Anderson was the best athlete at our high school, even when he was the track coach. Like every now and then, just to remind everyone that he had played football at Clemson, was all ACC and all that stuff, he'd just get a football out and would punt it 90 yards. I mean, and the dude's in his like 40s. And it's just, but to this day, he's the guy. And so all the football players were on the track team with me because Coach Anderson was like, "You're on the track team," because he's keeping everyone in shape, right? And so all those guys were my guys, and it was our track team was really good. And what was odd was because Coach Anderson was a Clemson guy, we're going to run whatever offense Clemson's running. And just for folks know, Travis Rest High School, I mean, as a crow flies, is nothing from Clemson. I mean, it take you 40 minutes to drive down there, if that. And so the fact that he'd been a grad assistant, an assistant coach, and a player at Clemson just added to the lore of Coach Anderson. But because he was a Clemson guy, whatever offense Clemson was running, that's what Travis Rest was going to run. And so we had athletes built for like the run and shoot. Like we should have been slinging it, but we were running the wishbone because by God, that's what Danny Ford was doing. And that's how that was going to go. We didn't have the personnel for it. Daniel Court, DC, had an arm. We had all these guys that ran when we were on the track team, won the conference, all these sprinters. I mean, we should have been the Houston Astros or the Houston Oilers. And instead of the Houston Oilers, we were, we tried to be the Clemson Tigers.
So that didn't go too well, I guess.
No, our teams were okay. We had our moments, but it was not a great team. But they're fun to watch, and there was honestly something beautiful about the suffering, right? When the team's struggling, what you don't want to be is like 5-5. To me, either win 10 games or win 2 games because the stories seem to be better on the extremes.
Yeah, and your friends are showing up regardless.
Yeah, I was there. Yeah. Dude, you're talking to the class of superlatives. I voted most school spirit because I never missed a game. And also,
all right, so you were a mascot, and it elevated you to a very successful career as an intern for the Asheville Tourist.
Yeah.
I got your book. All right.
Oh,
I know you're going to,
sir. I appreciate that.
The circus of baseball. But tell me about this mascot story.
I can't remember who was the Travis Rest Devil Dog mascot, but they got hurt. And so
hold on. How'd they get hurt?
It was a non-mascot related accident.
Okay.
I believe it was a farm related accident. And I'm trying to remember exactly what happened. All I know is that it's like Friday morning and we got a huge home game and everybody's panicking a little bit. Like, who's going to be the mascot? And I'm like, well, I'll do it. And I always just, I'm just like, whatever. I was the guy I'm the new guy. I'm willing to do whatever anyway. And so I also figured out really quickly that if you were the mascot, you like hung out with the cheerleaders, right? And you travel with the cheerleaders. And you mentioned that book. I opened the book with me unsuccessfully trying to get this cheerleader from my high school, and she knows who she is, to go out with me. I think me dressing up as the Devil Dog was part of one of my many unsuccessful ploys.
So it didn't help. You couldn't leverage the Devil Dog into the date.
Yeah, but I did leverage it into, being part of dance routines, and I'm on the, we have no male mascots. It's just me or male cheerleaders. It's just me and them, right? And so but I put that thing on, and it was a padded, just football uniform, and with kind of chintzy paws, that you wore, but it had the big, like, paper mache, head that was modeled after my boy Mark Court's, design.
Yeah. And
what I realized very quickly was whoever had worn it, not just the week before, but in the years before, had never wiped that thing out. And so it smelled awful, but it was a hit, dude. I mean, I remember I went up in the stands, and I'm a big, you mentioned I'm a big minor league baseball guy. So Max Patkin, and, if you went to any minor league game and you saw the great major league mascots and go up in the stands and dance, I did all that stuff. I had a whole comedy routine I did, and have a picture in the paper, the Travis Rest Mountain Monitor, right? I mean, it was a big deal. And so at home, it was great. But the next week we went to Easley, South Carolina, and that didn't go so great. And I remember I got dressed in the parking lot right next to my buddy Dirty's truck. And as we're walking from his truck to the stadium, I start hearing this like bang, bang, bang. And I realized people were throwing rocks at the Devil Dog. And the rocks are hitting, the outer edges of this helmet, this paper mache plastic helmet, whatever, or, probably 12 inches off my ears. And these rocks are just hitting this thing. And then finally one hit me like right square in the middle of the back. And I hear Dirty go, "Oh, damn, man, we got to go." And it's like you see, like when people are shooting at like some head of state, over in, some third world country.
Yeah,
and
Dirty
the guys cover him up and then run him into the building.
You.
Yeah, that's what happened. And so I figured out very quickly when we left to take the head off and then make a run to the stadium or to the truck to get out of there. But the girl did not go out with me because of it. But I do have some great pictures of me, on the field with the cheerleaders when no one else, was allowed to stand with them. So it kind of worked.
Yeah. Hey, it counted for something, man. You earned those Devil Dog stripes, though. That is an actual Devil Dog moment. You were under fire.
Yeah. Well, and then you mentioned the book, the Welcome to Circus Baseball book. So, 5 years later, I was an intern for a minor league baseball team, and Ted E. Tourist was our mascot, a bear, and it's photo day. We're taking team pictures and we're taking baseball card pictures, and Fleer's there taking pictures for cards. And we had a local actor who would portray Ted E. Tourist. He never showed up. We still don't know why he didn't show up. And so our boss goes, does anybody here have any mascot experience? I'm like, yeah, man, go Devil Dogs.
which is really just an outrageous question.
So I have a baseball card. So I have a professional. There you go. I keep it in my office.
That's you.
That's me in there. Clearly the costume was made for someone much larger than I was, but that's me. It's Teddy Tourist. And on the back, Teddy Tourist's hometown was not Asheville, North Carolina, but Greenville, South Carolina, because, there you go. So I have a baseball card.
They shouted you out like that?
Yeah. So there you go. Go Devil Dogs, son. Go Tourists.
I love the book because you really do show the connection between how those high school experiences, whether it was at Travelers Rest or while you were a young dude out of college, in college, working on high school football games behind the mic, how they kind of started your career. And I think whether you played sports and made it to the pros as an athlete, like some of the people I talk to on here, or people in the media like you start in high school. You start and earn those stripes covering a lot of high school sports. And I'm sure you saw some amazing things and kind of crafted what you do as a broadcaster, as a reporter, covering Forest Hill, right? The Yellow Jackets.
Yeah, the Forest Hills Yellow Jackets. So right out of college, I was I did some local radio first as a color analyst, which, as y'all have just learned, I didn't play high school football, but now I'm a color analyst. And the play-by-play guy, this has been Monroe, right outside of Monroe, North Carolina. This is in Marshville, North Carolina, hometown of Randy Travis. As you pull into town, there's a big mural of Randy, painted on the side of a building. You pull into town, there's a sign, welcome to Marshville, North Carolina, home of Randy Travis, country music's finest. That's what the sign says. And we're on WIXC 1190 AM, Wixie and Dixie. And the play-by-play guy was James the Fox Reddish, Fox with 2 X's. And Fox weighed, I'm not exaggerating, 400 pounds.
Yeah.
And so we would get to Ralph Hargett Stadium at Forest Hills, and the only way to get up on top of the press box was this kind of a fire escape ladder. And the Fox would climb about halfway up that ladder and literally start swinging like a pendulum. And after about 6 swings, he'd get up enough momentum to fling himself up on top of this building.
Fox was an athlete.
And Fox and I had a good time, man. But then, kind of like the guy who played Teddy Tourist, one week Fox didn't show up. And the word was sent to me. I put on the headset at the ballpark or at the stadium, and the guy back in the control room at Wixie and Dixie goes, "Hey, man, Fox ain't coming. You're doing play-by-play." So when I wasn't doing radio, I wrote as a stringer for the Monroe Inquirer Journal, the EJ. And and the first game I covered was Anson County versus Sun Valley, and at Sun Valley, and the final score was like 65-3 or something. And I still have it. I scanned it not too long ago, but I wrote my whole lead was about the Sun Valley cheerleaders, because I was sitting there looking at them, and I'm like, again, going back to clearly I was obsessed with cheerleaders, but I was like, I think my lead was like, you have to hand it to the cheerleaders of Sun Valley High School. And I'm like, putting quotes like rah, rah, sis, boom, bah, whatever. I said, because, they were down 21-0, I think in like 90 seconds. And I'm like, but you couldn't stop the cheerleaders, no matter. So I would write, Anson County returns opening kickoff for touchdown and then has a pick 6 or whatever else, and then, give me an S. And I kept doing this all throughout the piece. I take it back to you drive back to the Monroe Inquirer Journal newsroom. I'll never forget the sports editor just lost his mind. Dude, you can't write a whole story about cheerleaders. I'm like, what the hell else am I going to write? I said, the game was over in 4 minutes. I said, it was the worst beatdown I've ever seen. And until Georgia TCU. And I said, so what do I do? I said, this is my lead. And the editor-in-chief was like, no, I love it. Let's leave it in there. And so as I went on to write for ESPN, I always wondered if that editor maybe, realized he probably should have just left me alone and let me write my lead about the cheerleaders.
I mean, I think it worked out for you.
Yeah, it worked out all right. But when at the best though, like it's kind of like the writing the book about being a $100 week intern for the tourists. Poorest I ever was, but the most fun I ever had. And when I was keeping my own stats, sitting on the top row of the visitor section, visitor side of the field, at Scotland County High School or Monroe High School or Parkwood High School, that's as much fun as I've ever had in my life. And the mistakes you make and the good ideas that you have back then, I still, it all adds up, man. Life is Legos. All that stuff you did back then is the only reason you get to do the stuff you do now.
100%, man. I mean, I grew up in Gwinnett County, huge metropolis outside of Atlanta. First job working in Macon, covering, schools that are in AAA, AA, single A. I was in, at the time, 5A was the biggest. Now it's 7A.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that time because it really showed me that pure element of high school football.
Yeah.
The true community. I'm not saying we didn't have it, but the true, like, man, this is all we got, man.
Yeah.
We're living and dying with Taquio Spikes at Washington County.
Yeah.
And the Edwards brothers. We still talk about them.
Yeah.
When we get our milkshakes at Dairy Lane. Still got their jerseys up.
Yep.
And we got a graveyard. We got a graveyard on the field for all the teams we beat.
Yeah.
It's real.
No, it's real. And it's and I tell you that one of the greatest lessons I learned in my career. And I talk about this all the time when I'm talking to like college classes or talking to people that want to get into the business is a lesson I learned doing the Forest Hills homecoming game that fall for Wixie and Dixie. And I had prepared all these notes for the halftime show. And we're going to do scores from around the conference. And I had written out I'd done this whole preview of the college football slate coming up on Saturday. And then I had written a whole preview for the Carolina Panthers game on Sunday. So I got 20 minutes and I am loaded up. And we come back from break and I'm like, welcome back to, Ralph Hargett Stadium, Forest Hills High School, the score is so-and-so and the Yellow Jackets lead. I'm like, let's talk about Saturday and, college football. And I start going through this whole thing. And then I get into my Panthers thing. And the way it worked and the way it still works is you're dialed into like the phone line. And so only when you're in a commercial break can the board operator at the radio station talk to you without everyone hearing him over the broadcast. And I mean, I am going into great detail, man, about how, Stephen Davis is going to do this for the Panthers on Sunday and, whatever, so-and-so. And right on the air, the board op back at the station goes, hey, Ryan, it's time to take a commercial break. Like interrupted me on the air. I go, okay, well, you know what, folks? We'll be back. When we come back, I'm going to continue my preview, the Panthers and the Saints or whatever. We go to commercial break and he goes, what the hell are you doing? And I'm like, I'm breaking it down, man. He goes, no, shut up. He goes, my phone lines at this radio station are completely crashed with all the angry people wanting you to tell them what is happening on the field. I go, nothing's happening on the field. He goes, homecoming is happening on the field. He goes, that's what they want to know about. He goes, I got grandma stuck at home wanting to know what their granddaughter is wearing on the field right now. He goes, so damn it, talk about homecoming. We come back from break, and dude, I was like Grantland Rice. I'm like, folks, you won't believe, the pink chiffon dress that, that Laverne so-and-so is wearing, but what I learned that day though was know your audience, right? Who are you writing to? Who are you speaking to? Who are you broadcasting for? Because my audience did not care about the Panthers and the Saints, and they certainly didn't care about, USC, UCLA. They wanted to know who the hell the homecoming queen was. And so I have lived with that lesson echoing in my head, since the fall of 1994.
It's powerful. You don't forget those, man. I got that lesson when I got a letter from a prisoner in Macon telling me that I needed to have NASCAR lead my sportscast. Said, all right, Sunday, NASCAR needs to lead.
Know your audience. For real.
No one cares about the Falcons.
Yeah.
Where can people find more Ryan McGee?
ESPN, man, wherever, any platform they give me, but primarily ESPN.com. We're getting all of our, you talking about NASCAR, this is the 75th anniversary of NASCAR. I started just a couple weeks ago. Now I'm doing all these top 5 lists through the rest of the season until we hit 75 things. So, top 5 greatest races, top 5 greatest drivers, top 5 toughest drivers, top 5 ugliest cars. I mean, I got a bunch of stuff coming. And then, and this time, I'm working on college football preview stuff, man. Marty McGee, we're back in the studio on Saturday mornings, and we'll be hitting the road Labor Day weekend, going to Nashville for the rematch of the 1990 Sugar Bowl, Tennessee and Virginia.
Yep, there's a lot of bad blood still boiling over from that one.
There is for me. So it's I'm going to be telling. I start dating myself when I tell these stories, but I'm going to tell them anyway. So yeah, the phone's still ringing. So y'all keep reading.
McGee, thank you so much, man. Appreciated the stories. Good luck this football season. Talk to you soon.
Go Devil Dogs. Death to Berea.